Hello and welcome to episode 204 of the How to Survive podcast. Now, it has been established that persons who have recently died have been returning to life and listening to the How to Survive podcast. A widespread investigation of funeral homes, morgues, and hospitals has concluded that the unburied dead have been returning to life and seeking informative movie chat and witty banter. It's hard for us here to be reporting this to you, but it does seem to be a fact. Joining me to discuss this sobering news, Joe Sherville.
All right, mate.
How's it going?
Not bad, thank you.
Yeah. Are you ready to talk about all-time great of the horror genre, Night of the Living Dead?
I've got some thoughts. In my head. Do you get it?
No.
Zombie by the Cranberries.
Right, there you go. Good up-to-date references for all you kids out there.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen Night of the Living Dead, you've had a mere 51 years in which to do so. It is, of course, directed by George Romero, who would go on to make Dawn of the Dead, a film we covered. No, you only made it once, mate. Come on. You're supposed to be an expert. That's what people tune in for. They tune in for 100% factual and correct information about all their films, not hastily researched,
cobbled together
information and poorly thought through opinions, lightly dressed with witty bants.
Witty banter? You've used witty banter twice today.
Yeah, well...
Are we lads now?
Yeah, absolutely, we are. You can support the lads on Patreon now. Patreon.com/lads. No, patreon.com/HowToSurvivePod. If you enjoy the podcast and would like to hear more of it in exchange for a few rubles per month. If you haven't listened to the How to Survive podcast, welcome. We are a podcast where we like to talk about a film and how we would survive in it. But to do that, we must recap the plot, which of course means spoiling it entirely.
Spoiling it like a festering dead person come back to life.
Now, if you haven't seen Night of the Living Dead, then the good news is that it is out of copyright. And so it is freely available on the internet.
No.
Yes. If you go to Wikipedia, you can watch the whole film.
Really?
Yes.
Why?
Copyright expired, and no one, well, for whatever reason, it has now become, uncopyrighted property of the world.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we watched the 2K restoration, which is available on Amazon Prime Video, and it looks really, really great.
Yes,
I think
it is. It's mad.
Which owes a lot of owes a debt to the beautiful photography by George Romero.
He filmed it and shot it.
Shot it, and edited it,
and wrote the theme tune.
Wrote it. Yeah. So, without further ado, Night of the Living Dead. After this,
I mean, this is probably from before trailers, so it's just going to be like either a fan trailer or the one where it's like the DVD release or something.
Or it'll be like a terrible, shocking horror. Yeah. Too horrible to imagine.
Welcome to a night of total terror. Night of the living dead, the dead who live on living flesh. The dead whose haunted souls hunt the living whose bodies are the only food for these ungodly creatures. Night of the Living Dead.
Barbara travels to rural Pennsylvania with her brother Johnny to visit their father's grave. While there, Barbara is attacked by a strange man, and as Johnny comes to her aid, he hits his head on a gravestone and dies.
What a bad visit to the cemetery.
Yes. Barbara is pursued to a farmhouse by the mysterious attacker, where she finds the mangled remains of a woman. A man named Ben rescues her and secures the farmhouse, and Barbara enters a fugue state.
Yes. It's also worth mentioning, because it may come up later, Ben is a black man.
Yes. Ben discovers other survivors in the cellar, Harry and Helen, an angry married couple with their sick child Karen, and a teenage couple named Tom and Judy. Harry forms an instant and obvious dislike for Ben for some reason.
He doesn't like being talked to by people like that. People who live upstairs.
Yes, of course. And tries to convince the rest of the survivors to hide in the cellar with him. However, Ben convinces them to stay above ground where there are ample escape routes. A radio broadcast informs the group that their attackers are the reanimated bodies of the dead, a nationwide event possibly triggered by the return of a radioactive satellite from Venus.
That is interesting, isn't it?
It's like a proper 1950s B-movie plot, isn't it?
This is before man landed on the moon. This is what the sort of shit they thought.
Yeah. Well, no, it's 1968. So, yeah, the year before.
Yeah.
Fucking hell, people must have been shitting themselves. The attackers are known to consume the flesh of the living. All points towards a familiar How to Survive foe, Joe.
Yeah.
The group formulates an escape plan, but as they pump gas into a truck, the fuel catches fire and destroys the truck, killing Tom and Judy in the process. The ghouls eat their charred remains, and Harry attempts to barricade Ben from the house, but he forces his way in and beats Harry senseless, angered by his cowardice. A news broadcast reports armed posses of men are roaming the countryside in order to regain control. The ghouls attempt to break into the house, and Barbara sees Johnny in their number. She tries to reach him and is devoured by the horde. Harry tries to shoot Ben, but Ben grabs the gun and kills him. Helen runs to the basement, where Karen has now turned into one of the ghouls. Overcome, Helen is powerless to fight back as Karen kills her with a trowel. Ben retreats to the basement and kills undead Helen and Karen. He hides downstairs overnight as the horde roam the house above. The next morning, the armed posse reaches the farmhouse and one marksman shoots Ben dead, apparently mistaking him for a ghoul. In a coda, we see the posse pile up the bodies of the undead and Ben and burn them. So that was Night of the Living Dead, heavily criticised upon release due to its content, but I think in the time since its release has been largely seen as a classic and an iconic horror movie.
Very influential.
Yeah, well, it's the film that really gave us the framework for the zombie film, as we know them, earned 250 times its budget in box office.
Not bad, is it?
That's what the people thought back in 1968, Joe, but what did you think?
I mean, it's a masterpiece, isn't it? Really? Yeah. It's amazingly well acted, even though some of it's a bit clunky by, let's say, 2019's gender politics.
Yeah, a lot of slapping Barbara to get her out of her stupor.
Puts his back into it as well, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does a little bit. That is a bit of a shame.
But like the women. We'll talk about the gender politics later. But
yeah,
aside from the fact that they're written fairly flatly, they are very well acted. Mm-hmm. The acting isn't necessarily hysterical, even though the characters are. It doesn't feel over the top, or it feels realistic or grounded in a certain realism. And I think there's the hysteria comes in the soundtrack and in the lighting and things like that more than it does in the acting. Would you say? Yeah.
Well, the black and white photography is still looks extraordinary. I think, especially in the restoration print that we watched.
Yeah. And it's kind of like a comic book, isn't it?
I suppose so.
Places, yeah.
It's like a film noir, or so it gives it a definite like bleak tone.
Yes,
I think, as well as just a sort of general aged quality. Mm-hmm. I think it's excellent. Is it fair to say zombie makeup has come a long way since 1968?
Or just like black eyes?
Yeah. Not even that on some of them. Some of them are literally just people who must have died of like a heart attack or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I think it's beautifully shot. There's some shots in particular, like Barbara looking into a music box.
That's amazing.
Like, and it's like George Romero shot this as well as directing it, editing it, and it's like he's not known for his cinematography, I don't think.
No.
And like what an amazing talent he must have been to have been able to do that.
Yeah.
As well as all of the other things that he did for this film.
But everyone, I think, it looks like they all know what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Like they're playing it as like a 50s. It's almost B movie. That they're very earnest people. Everyone's just playing it completely straight, right?
Yeah, well, it reminded me a lot of like, it felt very theatrical. I thought,
Yes, it's like
in
a play.
style of performance. Yeah, and it could easily be like a classic American play.
Yeah.
I think. You could see a version of this, and I'm sure there is one. I haven't looked into it. I'm sure there is a stage version of Night of the Living Dead with
With no zombies.
Well, yeah, man playing. Yeah, exactly. You wouldn't need them, right? You just have they are looming outside of the frame of the stage.
Yes, like all like many zombie movies after it, the real monsters are the friends you make along the way.
Yes. I think. Yeah, exactly. So much of the story happens outside of what we can see on screen, and this is, we're going to talk about the influence this had, obviously, on the zombie genre in a bit later. But one of the things that stuck out to me is the communication of plot through radio broadcasts, or like news broadcasts, which is still something that you see in every zombie film.
Yeah, it is. But it feels like they go like above and beyond in this movie. I think.
Yeah.
There's like a tracking shot where someone comes out of a press meeting in Washington DC, and it must have been shot on location in DC. And they're like following like a group of people across the court, across the road, down the road. And the White House is in the background. They get in a car, and it feels very authentic.
Yeah, it feels like authentic news footage of the era, doesn't it?
It does.
It's pretty bleak,
yes,
I would say, and humorless, and particularly in its very unsettling ending.
Yeah, that's pretty gnarly.
Did you know about the ending before the film?
Do you remember we watched this years ago?
Oh yeah, that. Yes, I do vaguely remember that. I think.
Yeah, it happens with a lot of movies. I think we've seen. It'd been interesting to see how many of these we saw together years and years ago.
Yeah. It's very much how the How to Survive podcast was born.
Yeah. But anyway, I had seen it, so I knew the ending.
Mm-hmm.
But you have a better appreciation for it when you've covered 5,000 million horror movies that came after it.
Yes.
You see how influential it was. Like just 3 weeks ago when we did Shaun of the Dead, you've pointed out that we're coming for you, Barbara.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Well, Shaun of the Dead is very much like a love letter, isn't it?
Yes.
So the influence is worn very openly, but it's everything else, I think, that really shows how influential it is, because this is just the framework. It basically lays out the framework for every zombie film that's come since.
Basically, yes.
Because, you've got characters holed up somewhere to survive the horde, like Dawn of the Dead, Shaun of the Dead, however many other zombie films, even things like Train to Busan, essentially are
28
about...
days later.
Yeah, it's literally... almost every zombie film is, we are somewhere, and how long can we... how long can we stay here without them getting in? And if they do get in, where are we going to go?
Walking Dead, I guess. I haven't watched it for years and years and years.
I mean,
it's a new place to defend per season, isn't
right?
it,
Exactly that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You've got the archetypal capable characters and the archetypal emotional wrecks.
Yeah.
You've got desperate, ill-fated escape attempts.
Yes.
You've got zombie children.
Yes,
which is opening of Dawn of the Dead very memorably.
Yeah,
Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead.
I would say probably more shocking than this one.
Yeah,
I guess you got to contextualize it, haven't you?
Right, exactly. You got to see it in the context of the era.
Yeah,
and having a child
eating her dead father.
Yeah, and murdering her mother with a trowel.
Pretty nasty.
It's pretty grim. I think this was rated as like the #1 horror movie ever by someone, some outlet, Time or something like that.
Podcast.
Yeah, and like the news broadcast plot devices. It's basically you could take this framework, change it to a train, change it to a pub, change it to a shopping centre or whatever.
It's the formula, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the formula has been established by this film.
It is. Yeah. Is there any... 28 days later, kind of tried to break that formula. Next week we're talking about 28 weeks later, which is the sequel to that. They are zombie movies for all intents and purposes.
Yeah, they're one of these like nouveau zombie films who are like, oh, actually, we don't use the Z word.
Right, yeah. They're revisionist zombie horrors.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And most of the revision comes in, they can run now.
Yeah. Although the zombies in this aren't quite, they're not quite the complete, like, dragging your feet along the ground moaning that you get in, say, Dawn of the Dead. And they're not the rage-infected sprinters from 28 Days Later. But they are somewhere in between. They seem to know what's going on.
Yeah, they're not...
they've got a plan.
They're not quite as brain dead as you would see in later films at all.
No.
And one of the things that really sets them apart is using a tool.
Yes.
Using tools and weapons.
And smashing the lights up on the car and stuff.
Yeah, well, I guess that could just be like a moth thing, like just drawn to it.
They like smashing it, so...
Yeah, but as in like...
Well, they just,
attacking whatever.
Things that have light emitting from them.
Yeah, but the tool and weapon thing is a thing that Romero returns to later in Land of the Dead. I don't know if you've seen that.
You've told me about it a few times, but I've never seen it.
So in that, it's a city is walled off, and that's the
Land of the Dead.
That's or the land is, I guess, everywhere else, which is zombies. Okay. And like in that film, the zombie horde, one of them picks up like a machine gun and figures out how to use it.
Right.
And I think obviously in Day of the Dead, which I haven't seen and I need to get around to at some point, there is a whole plot line about a zombie being educated, right?
Right. It's like Planet of the Apes, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
Planet of the Zombies.
Yeah, well, there are some other little differences I thought as well. The main difference is the advice on how to destroy them is to just cremate them immediately. And there's a brilliant line which is, the bereaved will have to forego the dubious comforts a funeral can give.
Yeah,
which is excellent.
It's just flesh at the end of the day or something.
Yeah. They're called ghouls.
Not zombies.
Yeah, and I think George Romero was wary of using the word zombie because of its like ethnic cultural connotations.
Okay.
It's like linked to Haitian culture.
Right, exactly.
And also that, they are slightly distinct in some ways from that traditional understanding of what a zombie is.
Yeah, they seem to have a bit more zip than just being a brainless vessel for brain eating. Yeah,
I don't know whether is that the cultural origin of it. Like, I thought they were just sort of vessels for evil, right?
Yeah, it could. I mean, I assume it's a reanimated corpse. Why it's reanimated could be up for debate, and it could be a scientific reason, like radiation.
Well, it's radiation in this film, and then in Dawn of the Dead, which is a direct sequel.
It's hell is full up.
Hell is full up, and all. Yeah, hell is full, and all the devils are here.
They're very distinct in their political messaging. Like Dawn of the Dead and Night of the Living Dead are both extremely political. I'm sure you'd agree.
Yeah, of course.
Dawn of the Dead is very... I think I prefer it, in a way, just because it's got colour. I hate black and white films. Anyway, they're rubbish.
Yeah.
They're old, aren't they?
Yeah.
I don't know. I just have more of a soft spot for Dawn of the Dead.
Sure, yeah.
I think more happens in it, probably.
Mm-hmm.
But that message is that we are already all zombies, and we flock to, in droves, in hordes, to shopping centres and wander around aimlessly.
Yeah.
And what's the difference, basically?
Yeah, like, we're even in death, people can continue doing the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Whereas in this, it's more like it's more about race relations, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the guy who becomes the main character, Ben, is a black man.
Yeah,
and he is essentially murdered by a lynch mob.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's quite a big statement, isn't it? Killing him in the final moments of the film.
Because there's two readings to it, right? If you were let's say you wanted to deny it, that it's a racial message, you could say he just got killed by accident because they didn't.
And it's like a dramatic irony thing.
Yeah, right. But I don't think that's the case.
No.
Based on how political George Romero to be.
Yes.
It's almost certainly saying they are racists.
Well, it's fairly revolutionary, or it was fairly revolutionary back in the 60s to have a black protagonist. and especially an educated black protagonist.
Right. He's the guy who actually understands what's going on and is leading things, really.
But he's capable and he's fiercely moral. Originally, in the script, he was an uneducated truck driver who was white. Then Dwayne Jones was cast, and Dwayne Jones, who himself was quite well educated, convinced Romero to rewrite the script with his help to reflect his own intelligence, basically, to make the character more like Dwayne Jones.
Yeah. Easier job for him then, isn't it? That's an intelligent move, just to play himself.
Well, yeah, exactly, yeah.
He'd struggle to play a uneducated white truck driver.
Well, yeah, I mean, the thing is, though, that the script was largely unchanged, I think, from when Ben was due to be played by a Caucasian actor, which, again, is somewhat unheard of in that era, because there's no indicators, really, that he is a black man in the plot.
There's not. They don't mention it once.
Exactly. So it's like, it's... you know, probably one of the earliest films where his race is almost incidental.
Yeah.
But then,
yeah,
how does that change your opinion of the ending? Because if the script originally was that Ben was white and that is how the ending was in the original script, then does that make it a racially charged ending, or does that change how racially charged the ending is?
I think, like, anyone with a brain in their head sees the iconography of a group of hillbilly white men, with the backing of the sheriff,
rural
and
America,
Alsatians, outside a barn where a man is hiding in the basement, and they point at him and say, "There's one," and shoot him in the head. Right. Okay. Right. You know, in the lead up to that, you're just thinking, "Please don't go out there. This is not going to end well for you."
Yeah.
It reminded me of Get Out for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
The ending of Get Out is similar. It draws, I think, on the same feeling of, oh no, this is going to go badly.
Well, Get Out basically has a punchline at the end of that setup, right? Where the mob, as it were, the mob equivalent is not
what you think
it is. Yeah. And that's a moment of relief. Whereas in this, it's literally, there is a white posse tooling around rural America with guns, and they shoot a black man dead and then burn his body.
Yeah.
And it's like, the fact, I think what really sets it apart is having the still photos of the way they treat his body. Like moving it around with meat hooks and things, and then burning it. It's, I think, really hammering the message home.
Yeah, right. Because they treat him like he's not a human.
Yeah, exactly.
He's not dignified, is it?
Which, like, there's a plot reason for them mistaking him for a ghoul, but you have to consider, the intention of putting all of those things on screen in the way that Romero does. Like, it's not an accident. I think Ben's performance ties into this sort of whole theme of hyper-masculinity through the film, because all the men are strong, aggressive and capable, and all the women are useless and emotional and weak.
Basically, the men are men, the women are children, and the children are
monsters.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. But I read an interesting thing as well, that the film's considered by some as a Vietnam allegory, which is a demonstration of the collective American anxiety about the missing bodies of their young men. Like the violent end that so many young Americans faced, and, all of these, ghosts coming home to exact their vengeance.
I can see that, yeah.
I think you could
and
also,
a black man being a disposable.
Well, I think you could definitely,
yeah.
with that in mind, you could definitely read the ending as being a metaphor for how the country treats its veterans.
Yeah,
absolutely. I think that's a theory that really holds some water, and I think it's quite a chilling.
Yeah, because every human death in the movie is just like pointless, basically.
Yeah, but like, yeah, I mean, you imagine, yeah. If you use that reading of the film, it's basically a film about an unjust war or an unnecessary war, and all the people who died fighting it return as like terrible, vengeful spirits.
Right, yeah.
To wreak vengeance against the people who sent them there.
Yeah, that makes a fair amount of sense.
Yeah.
It's pretty bad reading of PTSD, though, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Turns you into a mindless killer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, this is Rambo made 20 years earlier. But instead of being a veteran pushed too far, it's loads of people and they're zombies.
Yes, exactly.
Do you think there's a certain element of Ben being proven wrong in the end? Not by him dying,
because
it turns out he has to take refuge in the basement after all.
Yeah, he ends up resorting to the plan that he was so
like
against.
Fighting, he killed a man to like avoid doing, essentially.
Yeah. I mean, he killed him 30 seconds before he enacted the plan.
Yeah, exactly.
I think at that point he's just killing Mr. Cooper because Mr. Cooper tried to kill him.
Yeah. Do you think who's the kid? What's his name? Tom?
Yeah.
Looks like Jake Gyllenhaal.
I didn't notice it at the time, but I'll take your word for it.
Just like him. And I was like, this is time travel.
It's like dark.
Yeah. Barbara's character is just rubbish, right?
Yeah.
Like, she's great for the first, let's say, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And as soon as she gets that doughboy, she goes down like a sack of shit.
Yeah.
But she doesn't get knocked out. It's like she faints from the shock of being punched.
Yeah. Well, she's had a rough day.
I love how like every time she like there's a scene of her just like staring at the lace, like counting the holes in it.
Yeah.
And every time someone walks in, they're just like, her brother died. And she's like
and then her brother turns up at the end, which is of course, I'd forgotten.
Great.
As Shaun of the Dead. That's what Shaun of the Dead is referencing when Pete shows up at the end, clearly.
Yes.
And then, of course, Diane running out into the crowd is a Night of the Living Dead reference as well.
Do you think the sticky end met by Mrs. Cooper is also the same ending that's met by David when he's got his back to the window and his arms coming through and grabbing? It's not quite, because he gets dragged through the window and disemboweled.
Well, Mrs. Cooper gets a trowel through the head, doesn't she?
She does. But she is at some point grabbed by arms behind her.
She is, yeah.
I don't know. I mean, obviously, this is a massively influential film on Shaun of the Dead.
Yes, clearly.
For very obvious reasons.
Yeah, it's not a new or particularly valuable insight, is it?
No. So, I mean, with all that said, mate, how would you survive in this movie?
Right, well, I'm glad to return to a How to Survive survival tip staple, which is my good old friend, kick the child as hard as you can.
Where have we seen this before?
We saw it in Child's Play.
Yeah, we always kick the doll as not the child.
Well, that's true, yeah. Child's Play, The Omen, The Boy.
Anything where the assailant is like tiny.
Yeah, diminutive. I don't want to hear that whole I wouldn't want to kick my daughter nonsense, right? If my daughter's coming at me with a trowel, she's getting a good kicking.
Yeah, right.
Dead or otherwise.
Right, exactly. If you're acting like a dick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm all for not hitting children, but if they're gonna hit you with a trowel, you can block it at least.
Yeah, you can. I know. You're gonna be all like, oh, in the comments, going, oh yeah, but she's in shock. I know, right? But also, you can't tell me that she wouldn't have survived if she'd just given Karen a good old kicking. Just boot her to the other side of the basement.
Yeah.
Problem solved.
Yes.
Survived. And also, probably would result in Ben being less likely to be killed as well. If there's two people, of course, black man with a white woman in the 60s in rural America.
It's not going to do him any
being
favors,
confronted with a posse of white men with guns.
Yes.
It's probably not
It might be worse for him.
Yeah, the maths doesn't quite square away with that one, unfortunately. So what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, like, you're not wrong. I mean, we have
Is it mealy-mouthed?
It's not mealy-mouthed. It does probably breach one of the podcast rules, which is you can't change the motivations of a character.
Well, so the motivations of Mrs. Cooper are that she is motivated to not kick her child.
Generally, it seems that she doesn't kick her throughout the movie. Yeah, and she seems to.
we have no evidence that she's.
I don't think it's an assumption to say she hasn't kicked her.
Karen is unwell.
Yeah,
it could be that she's suffering from a good case of having been kicked.
Yeah,
yeah.
I think you don't even need to kick her. You just need to block. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you were going to like hit me now with something,
Yeah.
I would probably try to block it.
You you could also do the textbook, put your hand on the forehead of the child and then they can't reach you.
Yeah.
So
So she's just like swiping and swiping. But
yeah,
can't get
exactly.
any closer.
I mean, that's how I would have loved to have seen the film end.
I can't imagine an adult even. If I had a trowel now, I'm not like a weak individual. I've got some muscle behind me.
Yeah.
If I had to drive a trowel through your skull, I'd struggle.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be clean. You'd survive almost certainly, just be like bruised and cut up probably.
I think you'd probably get it through after a few goes, wouldn't you? I also think if you'd given someone a troweling, they're not going to be putting up a fight for long. If you're getting a few good hits away.
I don't think anyone could take one troweling to the head and not lash out in defense.
I mean, it depends how good a troweling the initial.
She doesn't look like a good
troweler.
I wasn't looking at her thinking, here's an example of a troweling
If it was
expert.
Jason Statham,
Right? Yeah,
like he would split someone in half cleanly with the trowel.
If it was
in one go,
The Rock in
Hobbs and Shaw,
yeah, and he's flexing a truck on a chain,
over
over a
a
cliff, and troweling a woman with his other hand.
Yeah,
I'd be like, yeah, I buy it.
I buy it. Yeah,
I have to suspend.
Well, I mean, if you were The Rock,
disbelief.
how far could you kick Karen?
He's a good kicker, and I think he'd do a drop kick as well.
Is he what? So like off the floor, 2 feet to the face,
At full sprint.
he wouldn't even have to drop. He wouldn't have to do a full drop kick, would he?
No.
He could like. I mean, it's not. Her head is not high.
No, he could just. I mean, he would think he was a quarterback. He could do a good
Spear tackle.
no a kick.
Right.
A penalty
of course,
kick,
yeah.
Just-
Well, that's what I said about kicking.
yeah,
You
kicking.
could probably kick her head clean off.
Probably.
Trowel or no trowel.
That's where they went wrong. They should have brought in Dwayne Johnson.
Imagine if we watched this film and 3/4 of the way through the film, The Rock turned up.
Well, Jake Gyllenhaal was in it, so it's not unbelievable.
That's true, yeah. Any ideas from yourself?
Yeah, so one thing we've noticed earlier when we talked about the car was that they were drawn to the light in some way and they smashed it up. Whether that was because they wanted to smash things up
Yeah.
or just out of instinct or whatever, they seemed drawn to it.
Mm-hmm.
So my advice is to turn all the lights off because you're making it basically a beacon for all the undead in the whole area to walk towards.
So turn all the lights off and get in the cellar.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't
You're
understand
siding
why.
with Harry and Helen.
Yeah, I am, because they were fine. Ben killed them.
Yeah. Well, he literally killed Harry.
Yeah, and
He engineered a good troweling situation for Helen.
yeah. They would have died anyway because Matey would have turned, wouldn't she?
I think if Ben was there, he'd have no. Ben's not getting troweled, is he?
No.
Let's be honest. As we see.
Yeah. Trowel me once.
Shame on me. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, they've boarded up the windows. I agree with that. But they've got the TV and the radio and all the lights on. You could probably hear that from miles around in that sort of peaceful countryside environment.
That's true.
Which is why there's like
Certainly
70 people outside.
Certainly hear the giant explosion that they caused with the truck.
They're just so incompetent.
Yeah. I mean, this is 1968, so the tropes of the horror of the zombie movie haven't been established. So maybe it's that they're new to the genre, you know, so they don't know what you can and can't get away with.
I mean, you can't get away with that with me. I'm too...
So would you still board up the house?
Couldn't hurt, could it?
No.
Because
But then would you be able to do that in the dark? Would you want to do that in the dark?
Wait till daylight.
So you arrive at night, down into the basement,
Yep.
lock up. In the morning, go upstairs. If there's still zombies outside, barricade the house.
Yes.
I can't see any problem.
They're not going to detect
It's
anyone.
but it's quite a loud process, isn't it? The barricading.
Well, you could move furniture around.
But he's like chopping doors up and stuff, isn't he?
He's thorough.
He is thorough,
But it gets smashed down in about 5. Like a single punch comes through and breaks through the boards. So
yeah,
they must have put some like
Possibly.
rot or something. I think like I'll come down hard and say Ben is over. People overestimate, I think, how in control Ben is in this situation.
right.
He's just frantic. He's doing what he thinks is right. But I think if you were to approach it from a Freakonomics perspective,
Yeah,
he's doing everything wrong.
Right.
Like it is obviously more sensible to secure yourself underground where they can't find you or detect you, rather than turning the house itself into basically a lighthouse.
Yes.
And drawing them in.
Yeah. You're right in that because of their rural location, it's going to act as a beacon, isn't it?
Yeah. How about you, anymore?
Yeah, I've got one more idea, which is for the posse.
Okay, yeah. Who all survive?
Yeah, but this is more about net survival, helping everybody survive.
Right, okay.
And this sort of reminds me of my idea for the ending of Train to Busan.
Right, yeah.
Which is just issue a verbal warning before shooting people.
Yep.
Now, what is one of the key characteristics of the ghouls?
They can't talk.
They can't talk. Now, what is the key characteristic of Ben?
Verbose.
Verbose. Exactly. Right. I mean, you could say that Ben should make his presence known in a much clearer manner.
He doesn't know what's out there. I think
he's looking through a tiny crack of the window, isn't he, or something, and trying to see what's out there
and they
see if it's safe, and he gets brained.
Yeah, 1 second. Good shot. Well done.
Yeah, add him onto the pile. I mean, this is all working on the assumption that the men aren't like intentionally killing.
That's the question, isn't it? Did they see there's a guy? Oh, he's black. Pull the trigger.
Well, do you think are they using the apocalypse as an excuse to ethnically cleanse their area?
That's a leap, but it's,
It's not a huge leap.
Because we see it happen.
Because we see them murdering a black man who's not a zombie and then burning his body on a pile.
It is done in like enough to be, it could be an accident, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. Which side of it do you come down on?
Well, based on the suggestion of authorial intent, I think you have to assume that George Romero meant it to be an allegory for racism.
Yeah.
Rather than a just bad coincidence.
I think, like I said earlier, given that over the credits you have like freeze frames on the faces of the killers.
Yeah.
And the way they treat his body.
Yeah, it's deliberate.
It's a deliberate sign that they didn't really have him in the highest regard.
No, probably not. Yeah, I think it's fine. So there you go, mate. There you go.
Have you got any more ideas?
I suppose it's a bit mealy-mouthed. You will say this one's mealy-mouthed. Mm-hmm. It's for Barbara. Just come on.
Calm down. Pull yourself together, love, for God's sake.
Like, she is useless.
Yeah, she's not good. She's not going to be entering into the How to Survive Survivors Hall of Fame, is she?
She's a victim of her writing, I think, more than her circumstances.
Right.
Like, she is just one-dimensional. Just panic.
Yeah.
Panic woman.
Panic Woman, the arch nemesis of Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
Well, that about does it for Night of the Living Dead. The sun's coming up. It's nearly morning, but we should really make our presence known before we head outside again. Next week, we'll continue zombie redo season with 28 weeks later, the Juan Carlos Fresnadillo movie. Probably murdered that pronunciation, but there you go. If this is the first podcast you've listened to in a while, then you might be expecting some emails here. But of course, we now cover that in our Patreon exclusive mailbag episodes, which you can find at patreon.com/howtosurvivepod if you are in the Camp Counselors tier. And of course, if you are a patron or otherwise, feel free to email howtosurviveshow@gmail.com at howtosurvivepod or comment on our Patreon posts. Just get in touch with whatever you want us to talk about, whether it's about movies or not.
I have to say, I'm pleased with how it's gone.
Yeah?
There's a nice little community building on Patreon.
Yeah, I don't think, it's fair to say that we haven't had like an explosive... the Patreon hasn't changed our lives or anything.
Speak for yourself.
Well, yeah, exactly. But it's been really nice to have a bit more consistent and...
direct communication.
Direct communication with the listeners.
Because in the past, we've had Twitter, we've had Facebook, we've had a website, we've had emails, we've had this and that. They're hard to keep track of, but at least with Patreon, it's all in one place.
And we are incentivized.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it is sad that it took getting paid to put it in. in one place.
I guess so, but then
I'll dry my tears on these pound notes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but we really appreciate everyone who's gotten in touch. And if you're curious about the Patreon, it's not just the extra podcasts. We're in the comments. We're chatting to people. There's little conversations going here and there. It's becoming a nice little place for all of our listeners to communicate, I think.
Yes.
So whatever problems or issues life is serving up for you, is your wife trapped between a vehicle and a tree?
And you need to know what the fuck she's talking about.
Yeah, then do get in touch in all the usual ways. So next week it's 28 weeks later, which will be 1 week later than this podcast.
Yep.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it?
Oh,
yeah.
man, brilliant.
Yeah. And until next week, pull yourself together, Barbara. For God's sake.